Welcome to DFW Running Talk. I'm Chris Detzel, so let's get started. All right, welcome to another podcast on DFW Running Talk. I'm Chris Detzel, and today we have special guest Rachel Sanchez. Rachel, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Chris?
I'm good. Thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. This is a treat.
Yeah, it is a treat, and we'll see why here shortly, I think. So you've been in the running community for a while, and you live McKinney Allen area, right? So I'd love to know a little bit about your background. You started running when, what got you motivated to do this and all this stuff, because I've never heard the story, so I'm excited to hear it.
Yeah, sure. Oh my goodness. So my running is fragmented, you could say, from when I started to what it is now. There has been some development and some change, and running transitioning to a different sport completely, not completely cycling. So running for me, I did 1 year of high school all of high school cross country, 1 year. Track started it off in 2003, I think. I went to a very small school in Virginia, like a very
Yeah.
single A school, like our
So
good
you're the
fast
fastest
times.
then, like single A, you really had no competition, huh?
No, there's a few fast runners for sure. But when you look at the development of high school athletes, I hate to say it, some of our top notch high schooler like milers, there's 13-year-olds in Texas that can ride them.
Yeah.
A female could go to state on a 5:45 mile. That's a fast mile. Please don't think I mean anything less of it. But there's 12-year-olds that can
They're
jump down
doing,
5 minutes, and 4:30s, 4:40s for the men at 13. It's not uncommon. So
yeah.
just to put it
It's
in
super
perspective.
fast.
Oh, it's stupid. So I did 1 year of track. Oddly, I felt like the 400 was probably the fastest thing I could offer, which was, I belted out one of them at 59 seconds, which isn't
Then,
lightning fast, but it's somewhat quick compared to the 550 mile I ran 12 minutes for a 2 mile. But we only had one distance runner, and she was a senior that had a lot of other projects not going on, so she didn't run a whole lot. So I automatically got pulled out of 4x4 cleanup 200 and the 800 and put into the 16 and 3200
yeah.
every
Yeah.
track meet. So
Oh, I did that as well. And
Mhm.
I did cross country, and then I did the mile and 2 miler. And I just remember you doing the mile and 2 miler, like sitting there all day on the, outside hanging out. It was brutal.
Mhm.
I remember my last, and I was fast, like I was running 5:15s, for the mile or whatever, but I wasn't even close to being that fast. As a matter of fact, my best mile was a 5:12 in high school, and I got dead last.
Aw.
Yeah. But I didn't care, but I just went out too fast, and those were fun times, but really hard. Anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I
So
like
one more.
that. I like that. Yeah, it's kind of thing with the mile too. Like you're saying, it's like you go out fast and fade. That's not bad strategy. You're trying to get out
I
in the
mean,
first lap.
I was 17 or whatever. I didn't have a strategy. I just ran.
Just ran.
Yeah.
What's funny is that you say a 5:12 got you dead last. Hey, that is what it is. But you just think now, either one of us trying to run a 5:12,
Oh
like
man.
that's very at my very upper end if I had to absolutely empty it. Because that's
Wow.
only, 5:09 in the last several years I've run. But that was like a road one. So,
Still pretty.
people vote on
Look
that.
at how awesome and fast you are right now.
Yep.
But look, you are speedy for sure. So you got into running as a high school or in high school, and then you quit.
Yeah, I did cross country all throughout. We had a really good coach, the late Coach Chrisman.
Okay.
He passed away in 2016, abruptly, suddenly, unexpectedly from
Yeah.
a heart attack. Now we can dive into why that made me a little more serious a little bit later if we want. But so he was a good person to me. When I was raised by grandparents, a long story short, so my grandfather died when I was in 10th grade.
Mm.
And he was a very generous man. He looked after his runners really well, or any of the high schoolers, and he also taught courses, of course. And he knew I'd gone through all that, so he was right place, right time. So I also wanted to do him the honor of like at least finishing cross country. I had no interest in it. Like cross country is fun because the courses were wild. They're pretty
Yeah.
rugged in the East Coast. 'Cause I grew up in
Yeah.
Virginia, up, down, no spikes, mud, mess, what have you. And was able to go to state for once or twice, once at least. I think.
Okay.
I can't even remember. But my attention started to turn to cycling, and the running I was decent enough for a couple of very small colleges like Christopher Newport University were maybe looking, hey, come run, you okay. But I was like already heart and soul into the bike by the time I was probably towards the end of my 11th grade year. In 12th grade, I was definitely actually racing the full Virginia bar circuit, which is just basically a collection of races through the season. So on my weekends, I would go travel and knock things out
I
and
never knew that
race.
about you. I didn't know you were into cycling like that. That's pretty cool.
Mhm. That's what from there until my mid-20s, that's predominantly what I was doing was racing bicycles, including for a college named McRae, which
Okay.
sadly was one of the areas that was rocked with that recent hurricane as
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Western Carolina areas.
Yeah.
Raced for them and then raced for a couple small professional teams and then
So, I mean,
real
you were
life.
actually, you weren't just racing for fun. Maybe it was fun, but it was also for college and doing it just like as a pro athlete almost.
Getting there, yeah. I had some near misses, some really nice contracts, and then just bad luck. A couple teams folding at the wrong time because
Yeah.
financing women's cycling wasn't too big of a deal. And there'd be companies that would try and they'd work for a year and then budget would dry up. People, you need always at least a primary and a secondary sponsor to sign on immediately. And then all the other ones can come from there. But if you can't secure that money up front, you can't secure salaries. And then, of course, if you're a registered professional team, there are certain salary minimums you have to hit. I
Yeah.
never raced
Oh,
for a
interesting.
team that size, but
Okay.
I raced for very small. You could call them pro-am teams, but they technically were domestic registered professional cycling teams.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
did that for a few years.
That's pretty cool. Okay. What else? So, like, you
Well,
got into that, and did you stop cycling completely, or did you?
yes, it was abrupt. I had another like flash in the pan near miss moment. I rode pretty well in a race called the Cascade Cycling Classic in like probably summer 2012. And I had a really good day and got some of the teams starting to look around again. But I also knew I'd graduated college and I needed to finally do something with my
Get a job.
degree or get a job. Yeah, I
Make
can't do what I
money?
was doing.
Yeah.
So I had a Bachelor of Arts in Criminal Justice, and I have some family that lives in Texas. And they're like, you need to go to the academy and start this law enforcement stuff because that's the
Yeah.
direction I was going anyway.
Yeah.
So I was at a crossroads, potentially having the head cycling coach position at least McRae, or down the road of registering for a fall police academy in
Yeah.
Conley County, Texas. And it was a hard decision. And
I kind of know where you're going here now, but keep going. We know
well,
what
that's
the
not,
decision
I
you
get
made.
back to the running because like I had the major part it was once I was pulled towards that academy and having to do all that and getting in a law enforcement career, the running came back around. Police tests back then required a lot of 1.5 mile runs instead of rowing tests, which they do now. Had to do
Wait, what do they do now? What's the test?
rowing, a concept
Rowing.
2 rowers. Yeah, like you can do the
Oh,
2,000 meter as a pretty common one. People hate running. Cops hate running. Not all cops, but
I feel like running is probably a little bit more important than rowing. As a
I
if you're
was,
chasing a suspect or something, or I don't think
we
you're
could
gonna row
probably
over
edit,
there.
we could edit
Anyways,
all this out if you wanted to, but
no, I'm
probably
good.
for police work, if you're not going to do like a 300-meter sprint,
Yeah.
yeah, because the rowing actually is a double hemisphere test. You can particularly if you offer a sprint version of it, you show some like bulk power. That's also applied because you're not going to chase somebody on foot for a mile and a half. The most I've ever
No.
run after somebody is
No.
probably 300 yards.
No.
There's a lot of
Well,
safety
back up. You
considerations.
you decided to go into law enforcement for sure. So we know you're there, and then you started to run.
Away from stuff, not the cop. Can't do that no more. Whatever. Yeah, to prepare for the PT test, I was like, I haven't run in years. I
Yeah.
have like a really high VO2 max, blah 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 blah. I'm fit, but good God, I couldn't run around the block. I couldn't get. Oh, the ouch.
Yeah, a mile and a half.
So
But you're an athlete already, so it didn't really.
Mhm.
I'm sure you got there pretty easily.
After a few weeks, yeah, I settled in because the thing is like cycling. It's like you can become like pretty strong, but your connective tissue isn't used to that pounding, and
Yeah.
maybe just the general musculoskeletal system isn't used to all that jarring and pounding. So maybe cyclists have more bulk power, but the connective tissue and resilience to break down is stronger in a runner, I think. So I had to get used to the running again, and it was pretty dang painful. But after a couple 3 weeks, like for conditioning,
Yeah,
you know,
anytime you
comes
start
around.
running in the beginning is no matter what,
Mhm.
and if you haven't done it in a long time, it's very difficult. But I mean, if like you're already an athlete, or you were already an
Mhm.
athlete, and 3 weeks just doesn't sound all that long as you're consistent. Anyways,
Yeah. No,
That's
that's a good point. It seems interminable when you're like, oh, I just signed up for that. What was it? One of them. I think the first time I had to actually get after a run was DPS, the troopers. They had a mile and a half run, and they're all kind of paramilitary. So it's just do
yeah.
everything to failure, and they go, "Yay, you're a candidate! Can you do math and writing and make you do all this stuff?" And so after barely being able to run comfortably a mile and a half, do the test, finish all that. So it became just an economic way of running, like or staying fit rather.
Yeah.
Satisfy the test requirements, satisfy what has to be done in the academy, but it was also just, oh, okay, this is my activity now. So I really wasn't riding my bike very much. And it saves time because like you only have say 30 minutes of free time or an hour at
Yeah.
most. Like you're gonna probably get more efficacious cardiovascular training out of the running than you are gonna out of the cycling.
You have to like, plus you're in Dallas or whatever. It's a lot harder to find a place to ride your bike. People do it. I'm not saying they don't. Sometimes you have to, put your bike in the trunk or whatever, and then go somewhere,
Yes.
to actually ride your bike. And it is
Mhm.
not easy to do it to me in Dallas. I would probably do it if I
Mhm.
can just go out my front door and just ride anywhere, but I cannot. It's not that
Yeah.
easy.
Bless the people that go out and ride. Like when I
Kind of
first moved to
dangerous.
Texas, yeah, it's very dangerous. Like McKinney Bello, I did some group rides with them. I had a really bad concussion. I was trying to get back in shape. So riding with concussion issues. So yeah, that's smart. No, don't do that. So we found some routes up north in the rural area, but this was when the population was one half of what it is now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel for the folks because okay, the worst case scenario of cyclists is like taking up too much of a lane. It's like they're still a human being on the bike. And it's amazing
Yeah.
what people degrade themselves to doing to them.
I agree. Every now and then you'll see it with running. I do find that some cyclists get pissed about thinking runners are on the wrong side of the road or whatever. I'm like, no, this is the right. We're running on the
Mhm.
wrong side of the road, but it's right.
Yep.
And so a lot of people don't know that. But you can't tell people anything. If most people are running on the wrong side of the road, but it should be on the other side, what are you going to do? I can change it's a weird rule. When you think of, all right, so you get into running
Mhm.
and that's because you wanted to go into law enforcement and everything else. You got the job, obviously. That's what you do today. So congratulations. But you, as a competitor, you actually started getting into more, right?
Yeah,
You have to be a competitor because you've done marathons and a bunch of stuff. Can you talk about that?
sure. I get one thing after another, I guess. So, I kept in relative shape. When I first maybe year and a half of my law enforcement career, I never got like way out of shape, but I wasn't like conditioned, you could say. But I was also bored. I was working a lot of weird hours, a lot of night shifts,
Yeah,
and
I was
so
guilty.
you gotta pay your dues.
You got to
Uh,
pay your dues, but
yeah, and hey, I might get stuck. Hey, you never know. I have to come back tonight. Oh, you need a sergeant at night. So. But anyway, so I actually went out and ran with the Frisco running company or club. I'm sorry. I just Googled it because I needed like some sort of social activity, but my ass wasn't going to wake up at 6 a.m. because that's when I'm going to bed.
yeah,
So then evening run in Frisco at a CrossFit gym. It wasn't at the running store where it is presently. And so I started to do it socially there. And then a year later, my now ex-husband, but I met him and we were dating
yeah,
for for like a year, and then we were married for a while. Yeah. We met, I think, in one of the best possible ways that you could meet, which is to do an activity of mutual interest. And
yeah.
so we did that. So I started running more with him. He was training for a marathon when I first met him. So I thought, that's pretty cool. And so enjoyed watching what he was doing. And then successful marathon, I'm like, oh, I want to do some of that. And then people were like, hey, maybe one day you can break 90 minutes and a half marathon. The Frisco running people. There's a lot of people that took me under their wing for sure.
Yeah.
So, because I'd already been I've had some experience coaching cyclists, but I've never touched a ruder. So I need
Yeah.
to figure out what's up. Then I guess I can segue back to something I said earlier with the cross country coach from Virginia, Michael Chrisman. So in 2016, it was October. I was at work when someone called me because they knew I adored him.
Yeah.
So I got
Sounds
that
like
phone calls at work. Yeah.
already. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So he passed away. And then there was this DRC 15 carry, I think
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
in 2016, and I was in pretty good shape. I was like narrowing down towards a Tulsa, Oklahoma marathon for my Diddy Call situation there. And so I was probably in shape at the time to run, say, I want to 7, probably 7:10, 7:15 pace,
Yep.
maybe.
Yeah.
So like we made word. That's pretty good running, but I went like nuts on that course. because the memory was fresh. Like a couple days
Yeah.
before I learned this information, and I was exactly just in his honor or whatever, because I never ran the best I could for him. And I regret that still to this day. But then he saw me actually become a professional cyclist. He followed along. 'Cause I lived in Virginia for a while after. So it's like
Yeah.
the lessons and stuff he instilled on me still came through, just in a different avenue. But then it's funny, in my late 20s and into my 30s, I circled back and here he is again. So I even stopped in that race with 15K. I stopped like a half mile from the finish line because I had gone into the red, like hands to knees,
Oh man.
like, like panting, like breathing like a Mack truck is going by. Holy, yeah, there I am, everyone, here I am. But still, even with that said, I get to the finish line in 1:03 something, it's
Yeah.
6:40 pace.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's considerably well,
Better than you thought.
anything I've ever done recently, except for
Yeah.
maybe a mile and a half to 5K. I cranked out like sub 6 pace for either one of those by that point, but nothing in the distance. Nothing.
Right.
That was my first foray into just send it.
To speed. Oh, that was it probably surprised you, it sounds like a little bit, that you could fast. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely was running past any conditioning levels. And you can get that performance out of you a bit. That's down the road of what a coach can do to help you with that down.
Yeah.
Your motivations and just what you screw it up in a mile into your race. What's the worst that'll happen? Learn and do the next one. So with some of that, like just go.
And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, about the coaching part.
Yeah.
'Cause I think that's important. But so you run this race, and so does that, you do it for your coach? And I love that's something that, something I always tell people is don't look at motivation to keep you running, but sometimes you can look for motivation to get you faster a little bit or whatever, right? Get something in your mind
Mhm.
for a race or whatever, right? And it sounds like you had that, a little bit to really drive you past something that you've never done before.
Exactly. I like that a lot. Motivation, you need it periodically. People almost say too fast, you can't have motivation because then that will fade. It's the honeymoon phase. You
Yeah.
blah, 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 states. Yes, you need to have a general lifestyle belief and system that's conducive to long-term goals. But it is good kindling to your fire. And then sometimes you have to stoke a fire and your motivation is going to come in and through there and help you.
Yeah, look, I'm all for a little bit of motivation. And look, I'm the master of, you know, doing something for a little while and then just doing it, but then getting back in. But mostly I've been consistent. But I think that when I look at motivation, people, I'll give one, David Goggins, right? Everybody knows who he is. And, a lot of people get really motivated by his speeches and, sometimes they're motivating, but I'm like, that's not going to keep you going. This guy is literally doing the work. And he says that it's, hey, can you sit there and do the work, be part of a community, do something that is going to get a coach, do something that's going to be consistently help you to be consistent. And just because sometimes motivation is not going to be enough. It's not going to wake me up at 5 o'clock in the morning and be like, oh, I don't feel motivated. Okay, either I go back to sleep or not. So I have to push myself to get up at 5 o'clock and go outside and run or do the work that needs to be done. So anyways, I get off on a tangent. I seem to get off
No,
on the same tangent over and over, but I do think that's an important part.
oh, absolutely. So you have to almost pick and choose and introduce David Goggins to folks who may not know who he is carefully. I did read the man's book.
Yeah.
And there's a whole lot in some ways to unpack there, like mentorship to men. Obviously,
Yeah.
women can apply there too, but like proper masculinity, if you will, like having compassion, caring, knowing you came from something hard, and then just being strong and fighting for what you want, especially if you're not being allowed to bang your fist on the table like somebody else is. I know he's endured a lot of that. But yeah,
Yep.
that's the antithesis to that though would be he tortured himself. There's just no way around that. He did a lot of stuff to his body, maybe his mind, that a lot of folks may not endure or isn't the healthiest way to go about it. Anything in life, don't run away from something just because you see some of the bad and you can explain that with whatever. Take the good and the bad, always. Always
Yeah.
find a silver lining. And there's silver linings to that for sure.
No, that's great. You put it in great perspectives that I wasn't even thinking about. So thank you.
There's no
Um,
scripts, and say what I want.
You should. That's what I love about this. So you get in, you run this 15K, super motivated from your coach that inspired you the most and just really was a big impact for you. But tell me more, like what, then you decided marathon next or the Tulsa one? Okay.
Yeah. So how did this go? And It's been a long time already. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I started
Life goes
training
fast.
life goes. It does. Like 8 years ago. Anyway, volume, like consistent volume. I can't even tell you how many miles a week I was running, though I do think I hit some 60 miles occasionally.
Yeah.
So the upside of that was like I was probably showing conditioning to just come out of the box with a 320 marathon because like I could talk and chat and run at 7:30 pace relatively. So that's a good indicator of marathon pace.
Sure.
However, don't get greedy is a lesson I learned.
Yeah.
Or,
A lot of people.
little things that kind of added up. It's like some of my running gait form. I think I overstrided a little bit. Tend to do that just a bit, just enough to like irritate my heels. So I already like compensating for a left heel issue I eventually had surgery on, but it like rocked my right IT band of all things. And I still have like just a touch of scar tissue from that. So I went to Tulsa and I literally basically hobbled my way around that course.
You were injured going into it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And I ran janky. I got through it. I hate to say that I limped my way to a 329 because that's a good time. But that's quite literally what I did. It was very painful. And I had months off after that because I couldn't even bend my knee. That's it. And then going to work and hiding that and hoping nothing happened.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, then it segued from there into proper training.
Okay. So how did you think of the proper training? Did you have somebody like, hey, look, you should train this way, or did you just do more research or what?
Combination, like I said, with the Frisco Running Club, that was like my first foray into it. I still had a lot of shoulders there for sure. And my ex-husband was a very good viewpoint of steady, proper training. Like he has a lot of time under his belt when it comes to running.
Yeah.
And then a couple of friends. So I got plugged into another run group, Craig Ranch, who had some, I guess, a wider range of paces. So people.
So Rick
there.
used to be, you remember Rick, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Rick actually was a big help.
He's great.
2016, 17. Yeah. I miss that man. He's a good overseas.
I'll just tell a quick story about,
Yeah.
what's his last name again? Rick
Johnson.
Johnson. Yeah. So
Rick Johnson. Yeah.
he's funny. He reminds me of what's that dude on The Office? Reminds me of him. But you never seen The Office?
I've seen it periodically, but shame on me, but I don't know.
Anyways, doesn't matter. So he used to be a coach and things like that for Dallas Running Club, where I got my start. But he's just very vocal, he's always very nice and very helpful. And he's the one that actually got me into being a pace leader for the 320 marathon. And I thought, dude, I can't run a 320 because you don't need to. You have the speed to run paces and everything else you need to train. So I did it. And that was my first time to really, anyways, so he was very inspired. And then he left and went to McKinney and lived there and then just started.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, he started the whole running group there, right? That's how it got started. And
I
now
think
he's
so,
in some other country, and he started a running group there.
Oh, yeah. From that Craig Ranch people of Norway.
Norway, no, that's right.
That man's been over there although he comes and visits here because
3 or 4 years, yeah.
Kids. Yeah. I think in 2019 he left. I don't know how it rings a bell, but I think that's when he moved. Initially with his job. I haven't kept up too much on those. Is he still employed or has he been able to retire and he
No idea.
retired to Norway? But yeah, he's still in it. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that with the pacing because I paced on the Colony half in 2016. It was the first time I ever paced. And of course it was long. That year it was
You
long.
paced the marathon or?
Half marathon there.
Okay, marathons
mile.
anymore.
Yeah, me neither. I'm different break.
Well, let's go into that. So
Yeah.
you ran that marathon and got a little hurt, but then took a few months off and then started getting help from others. And you've run some other marathons. And as a matter of fact, you've got close to super fast, like 240s or something like that.
Yeah, upper 240s.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive.
It was bittersweet. So my PR comes from Houston, January 2020. Looking back, that's probably, if I had to pick 6 months of when I was the fastest, it enveloped that year and month through to when the world was literally shutting down. Woodlands, March 6th or something like that, 2020.
Yeah.
That was probably as my fastest half marathon. I think I had the conditioning to go 244, 245 with my coach at the time, who still coaches, Kyle Hefner. And he's a big volume, big miles kind of guy. If you can handle it, of course, you always tailor stuff if you can't. But so I got the flu and then I recovered from it, but my lungs are still chunky. I don't think it was like COVID before COVID was COVID, but I got the flu. And then there was like 105 girls that were like in this last chance when they had a B standard for the Olympic trials, which is, and a really awesome guy named Rick Powell was one of the pacers. And then I think there's a guy from Dallas. Oh, man, why am I spacing on his name? Is the Pegasus coach. He also was helping.
Terrible with
Blanking
names.
I blank on names. I'll randomly just out my there it goes. When he was
Same.
helping too.
Who am I talking? Anyways, go ahead, Reed.
You're on for video. There was just the pack was too big. Where a lot of us are getting caught out having to like run pretty fast after getting drinks, stuff like that. And it's just turned into this monstrosity. So it was a lot of stress.
Yeah.
It was like bike racing all over again, where people were clipping heels and stuff, or
Really?
so shoving into each other.
This
Yeah,
is there in
everyone's
the Olympic
nervous.
trials? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Here? So you're
trying
actually
to get into it, trying to get
trying
into
to
the
get
Olympic
into it.
trials. Yeah.
Which
The
race
last chance
was
to come
this?
for it. Houston 2020.
Got it. Okay.
It was like literally the day before the closing window if you wanted to do the trials the
Yeah.
next month, and end of the month in Atlanta.
The next-
It was like I said, the last chance corral was CIM in Houston. Had pacing and had the firepower, like a group of women trying to do it, and sprinkled in just other runners, some men that were trying to run 245 or just trying to vicariously help. Anyway, 2 hours in, the wheels come off the wagon for me. I got so close yet so far. It was
Yeah.
like I did that race, and by the halfway point, I was surprised at how comfortable I was. Like, I might be able to do this. Because like, you judge things, oh, hell yeah, I can do another half and a half, but you have to always remember that fatigue. And then,
Yeah.
20 miles in,
How it goes. I mean,
it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit of a sugar knock. And then there's like 3 big falls in the race. So
Okay.
one girl stepped on another girl, and that happened right in front of me. And I had to skitter across the road, like abruptly, like plant and slide and do all this stuff. And I like locked up both my adductors. Yeah. So I was like, I don't have any other B goals. I just jogged it in. But hindsight, maybe I should have just kept on the gas and been a minute and a half off the time and called it good.
You still did pretty well. What's just,
Yes.
that's the reality.
It's a privilege. At the end of the day, it was,
Yeah.
I know that's an overused phrase when it comes to stuff like that, but I can't even tell you the exact time it was. I always have to look it up if I've ever looked at it, but the memory of running with a group of people.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I know we're going off on a tangent here. It's like times matter in the moment when you have a training block and you're going for something, then you need to be disciplined and execute your training plan and try to give yourself the best possible chance and don't cheat yourself out of anything. But just remember, in the grand scheme of things, 10 years later, you're not going to remember the time.
I think the reality is, I agree. I think, look, I got into running because I was overweight and, just went through a divorce and was like, okay, I've got to do something. I've got to exercise. And to me, because I've done it before in the past, as a teenager and all that stuff, and maybe in my early, when I was 19 or whatever, but I thought, I got to get in shape, and I did. And I think that for me, that's what running has brought is, look, I've got serious, and it's even today somewhat serious, but yeah, the reality is I'm not going to ever be almost 50. There's no way I'm going to be an elite athlete or never could anyways. So let's look at the realities. Yeah, I like competing. I like doing those things, and I'm motivated by some of that stuff. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think whatever keeps us going at the end of the day, exercising, running, whatever, I think that's important. So I think, for you, it was a little different because you were actually really close to making the Olympic trial. You had
Missed about 10K.
Yeah. But that's a goal that you had to go after, and you tried. Now, when did you get injured? Or maybe you knew you were injured already, or what happened there? Did you remember you had,
All the surgery, yeah.
it was major
so
surgery that you had.
It was, and I'm very fortunate to come out of it. Is it perfect? No. Am I leaving a little bit of time on the table? I am. Yeah, I have the best foot strike on my left foot as I could, but it's better than what was going to happen if I didn't deal with it. I had insertional Achilles tendinopathy, and that was because people probably know what tendinopathy is, chronic inflammation of a tendon. And it gets bad if it goes over, intersects, goes around a bone. And if it has any kind of friction, like IT band friction syndrome, things like that. So tendons, muscles don't like that crap. So I have an enlargement on the back of my left heel. It's called your calcaneus bone. It's the big bony part of the back of your heel.
Yeah.
It was mildly overgrown, and some of that's from a pretty compensatory from a bad injury I had when I was 10 to my whole ankle. I never knew how bad it was until I had the MRI to my heel. But like a whole bunch of ligaments and stuff got torn up, and you can see like where there's a little bit of fluid deposit and my navicular bone, blah, blah, blah. Anywho, so that with the genetic, maybe the bone was just slightly bigger on that side, and then the tendinopathy and irritating it. So, you know, not respecting rest breaks or whatever I was doing wrong, that tendon got inflamed. So literally friction syndrome. We're going like this.
Yeah.
So there's going to be calcification on the bone, and then the tendon's moving around, so it enlarges the bone. And people are trying to talk me out of surgery, like, because there's a lot of PT you can do that for. I'm like, my guys, you can't PT your way out of bone growth. It's there.
That's
It's
right.
it's bone. I had to go through a list. My fourth surgeon was the one I finally let cut. For anyone who has any specialized medical care that they need, don't be afraid to ask questions. And if they cut you short, sorry, or else, no, never mind. If they don't want to listen to your queries,
Yeah.
appease you, offer any other option, you just want to go right to cutting, get another
got it.
opinion, and don't be afraid to do that.
100%.
And like I said, party of three, like just go to three different automatic, just schedule them out.
Yeah.
Your shoulder, your hip, I don't know, it's three.
Yeah.
And make
Yeah.
sure there's consensus. I didn't have consensus, so I cut on the fourth. But I wanted somebody that wouldn't take my pending completely off and reshape it.
Yeah.
And it's like this old country boy that works up at like Denison and Anna's, where his two offices. Yeah, that was awesome. My aunt, unrelated, aunt goes in there for plantar fasciitis. She tells him my story, and I'm going through hell because the surgery that they want to do will probably maim me. Like, I'll be able to walk again, but I won't be running very well.
Yeah.
And I was told to be for it right. That's what could happen.
Yeah.
And this old boy was like, let me see that foot. I have a friend in college had that. And I've sent people up to him because of my experience, because he's laid back. He knows the ramifications of surgery for the best of circumstances.
Yes.
So he looked at the foot. I think I can get in there if that's taking your tendon off. I would love that. Can we do that? Because I told him the surgeries. I told him the 3 different ones. And believe you me, I go to PubMed. I go to other countries. And I'm like, here in 2009, this Scandinavian countries say, like, there is not significant tendon tears. You can't just take the tendon off and do what's called debriding it, which means strip it of its decayed tendon and reattach it. Because, the problem with cutting the tendon like that is if you do, it's like a rope. You have all the pieces of a rope and you fray it. You have all those pieces sticking out. But yeah, you frayed it and you screwed. And you have to do your best case. And that Galen Rupp had that surgery where it was complete. Take it off, rebuild it, put it back on. But think of all the strains of a rope you try to put it back together. It's not going to go back the way it was. I was very fortunate, but the rehab was long. It was 6 months.
Yeah.
And there were some things, obviously, I wish I could do again with the rehab that I'm paying for, kind of in a way, but it's not as strong as I'd want it to be, but it's stable. And I can pretty much run, I would say, almost more of a limiting factor is 12-hour shifts than my surgery.
So you're doing 12-hour shifts at work?
Mhm.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. So for the
Walking and
nurses,
stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah, a little bit. It's physical when it needs to be physical, which is sometimes unfortunate. And that worries is on tire changes because there's something in the room, run over stuff. But it's generally like a very sedentary job. I'm a patrol sergeant, technically on paper, but we're a small agency, and so you can't just kick back and go, okay, youngins, go out there and do the thing that the chiefs want, and I'll make sure you do it right and read your.
You actually have to do some work.
Yeah, exactly. And I have a policy of never, ever ask someone to do something that you're not willing to do yourself.
Yeah.
So I use that in both in my coaching and in my work. Like, that's also why I trained.
Yeah, I love that. And so let's talk a little bit about that. Is that you're now coaching. How'd you get into that? And because you're actually with Sandy, I forgot her last name, you have to tell me, and then Sage Kennedy. How did all that happen?
Oh, that's a dream. Oh, my goodness. And her twin is also Rachel, goes by Ray. She's one of the coaches. But yeah, Sandy and Sage met many years ago, and they formed a relationship and a partnership and a business together. And 3 years ago, almost to the day, not quite to the day, but like the work anniversaries, I call it, was about. Unfortunately, it coincided when their condominium burned to the ground, because that's when I was doing a little project. Yeah. No one got hurt or killed in that, and that thing was leveled, even with admirable firefighting from Boulder's finest. They were never really saved the structure, but more importantly, no one perished. So I was already coaching on my own. Some of the local runners blessed me with the opportunity to tinker and try things out with them at a cheap rate, basically. So I was like, let me try some things. Because I've been coaching cyclists since 2007, 2008.
So you knew
So
how to, you had a
yeah,
philosophy and some things already.
yeah, exactly. Periodization and other blah 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 terms. But
Thanks for
mm,
sharing terms.
but programming,
I'm not
learning, and
that smart.
recovery. I'm sorry.
I said I'm not that smart, but yeah.
And I only say I do it on a practical level. I don't have an exercise physiology degree or anything, but I learn from the people that and
Of
truly
course.
implement it. And you can get it just by experience. And like I said, trial run with these group of runners that with me. Basically, like, can I play with you? So it went pretty well. Like I just had to learn how to like, program recovery and stuff like that, different than cycling. There's a whole lot of considerations, but a lot of stuff also carries over.
Yeah.
So I did that for several years, and then on a whim, because I love my job, my primary breadwinning one that
Yeah,
is,
of course.
but it's been wrought with a lot of frustration,
Yeah.
and it's not fully been the career that I want it to be, and it still does not really
Yeah.
hold that in the cards for me. But and sometimes you just have to suck it up and do the honorable thing and keep trudging ahead.
My
But
wife
to
told me that.
balance, but to balance the mental health part of that, to try to give me something else to also look at or hold on to,
Yeah.
I just on a whim emailed, Instagram messaged rather, Sunday, I believe it was. And she messaged back. I said, "Hey, I like running and I like coaching and I like you guys." Because I was guessing that they're like they are, like on the
Yeah.
Instagram reels when they're having fun, they're walking around, running in a trail, or
Yeah.
making little gag reels that they do, like
Yeah.
especially age.
Yeah.
They're like that. That's them.
That's their personality.
That is their personality. And somehow she saw my message. We messaged back and forth, explained a little bit of who I am. And more importantly, I want to do what I do. I didn't perfect to know everything. No one knows everything. It's a craft trade. I was a student of learning. So we talked a bit, and then she gave me a scenario, like to write a training plan for a decent, like sub elite runner. But then they put a couple little scenarios in there of relative energy and deficiency in sport, but not spill it out that way. I needed to look in between some hidden messages and figure it out, and then deal with the athlete that way. And then full blown injury, and how do you program? How do you deal with stuff like that?
Yeah.
And then they, turned it in basically as like an assignment, and they looked it over, and we chatted, and then they took me on board.
That's
And the rest
great.
is history. Yeah, yeah,
That
that was
was
a cheek pinching moment for me. They're
good.
celebrities to me in
Uh,
the running world. They
You're
are.
very well
They're
known in
celebrities.
the running community for sure. I'd say
Mhm.
trail running for sure. And
Yeah,
I know
definitely
Sage
on the
has
trail
done a
side.
lot of, he's done a little bit of both Olympic trials and all that stuff.
Yep. I think it was
I
right
like
place,
him,
right
man.
time. Yeah, they are
Sure.
trail
Yeah.
forward, but that's how my spot came up. Was I
Yeah.
think it was just I was also fortunate at the right place at the right time because they were getting an influx of people wanting like dedicated marathon road training, essentially
Got it.
marathons, half marathons, stuff like that. And they can't coach everybody that dorms their doors, so to speak,
Yeah.
through messages and stuff. And there are only so many, and they have to run a business. So that's where I came in.
That's pretty cool. So you're now, or you've been a coach, you work with them, and do you have a lot of athletes in the Dallas Fort Worth area, or is it pretty much just all over? Because I mean,
I
it's
do, I
virtual, I'm
do.
sure.
Yeah, yeah. Now I can say I boast people on multiple continents. It
What
ebbs
are,
and flows. Yep, yep, of course.
yeah.
But yeah, I have Oregon, California, and a couple. Kind of on top of our head. Yeah, definitely have some in Texas, in Dallas, and then yeah, I have a good handful in Dallas actually. Trying to think off the top of our head. But as far as the United States go, and of
Yeah.
course Colorado.
Pretty much all over. So interesting. I had you as a coach. You were my coach for about 5 or 6 months, and then I got injured. And I was like, man, I can't. Right. You helped me. Thanks. It was, I think your training plans were great, and you're very willing to work with the athlete. You worked with me, especially when I started getting injured. I was just trying to figure out ways to alleviate that. But at the end of the day, I look back and it was just really rest is what that needed because I had a Achilles, I forget what you call it, but something like it. But I was talking to the doctor and he's like, look, you're just gonna have to deal with it and or stop running for a while for it to stop hurting. And that's what I did.
Yeah, you don't want to mess with Achilles. You
Why not?
cannot
Like,
mess with it.
well, you would know.
No, I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
I'm sad when anyone has to walk away because I'm like, we can cross train it. But
Yeah.
no, for your situation, it's multiple months that you needed to tend to it.
And I did. But I would say that you as my coach I really had a great experience just because, like I said, you were easy to work with and you would, change the plan if needed. I didn't change it too much, but I did the work for the 6 months and I saw a huge, look, I'm going to go back because so I ran this half marathon. Before I ran this half marathon, I sent you a message and I was like, Rachel, I don't know if you're taking coaches or taking clients or not, but I would like, to hire you to do that if you're still taking, let's talk. And we did. And you said, what's one of your goals? And one of my goals was to hit under a 130 before I was 50, right? And I was 48 at the time, I
Mhm.
think, something like that. And so that was like a week before a half marathon that I was going to race. And then I run this half marathon in Utah. It was a downhill and I hit a
Mhm.
128 something. And I was like, holy shit. I was like, now my goal is 125. So you just,
Nice. So we got
yeah. So, but you really helped me to stay really focused because I then ran the Houston half, injured in between that, but still got, I think a 132 back in January, which was really good and slightly
Mhm.
surprising because I laid off some of the work that we were trying to do. Yeah, I mean, what the plans that you put in place, if you just do the work, it's gonna work. It's just gonna work. Like you're gonna hit your goals. So I appreciated that.
And you did the work too. So that's what
You
we
have
appreciate.
to.
Oh, the athletes.
Been a
That's
long
what
time
training
since I
takes.
worked that hard at running, by the way. The one
Oh,
thing that I believe about coaching is that, like, you'll put together this plan for me, and I feel obligated, which I should. No, I should. Look, I'm paying you money to be my coach, but I also feel obligated to do the work because you're putting that together, and that's the expectation is I'm coaching you to do this. You know what I mean?
yeah, no,
I'm not saying, look, things happen, but I wanted
absolutely.
that's what I wanted, right? Because now, gosh, I didn't do it or I didn't feel like doing it. I don't really have that choice anymore because it's because I'm paying for it because you actually
You
spent time
justified it.
putting it together, right? Because for
Mhm.
me, I could go run 20, 25 miles every week. It's fine. Maybe there's some speed work. I'll do a Witch Theory or whatever. But I believe that coaches can really help you, not with just the plan, which is an important part to get to the thing
Mhm.
that you want to get to, but also just from hey, obligation is probably not the right word, but just, hey, she's doing this for me. But yes, I'm paying her. There's some kind of thing there that says, you do this, I'll do this. And I think that accountability is really the word I was like, see, I forget words, but accountability is the key. And that
Mhm.
really helped me. It wasn't somewhat motivating, but more
Mhm.
accountable to the plan and to the person that's trying to coach me. Because next time I have a conversation with you, Chris, you're looking at all my stats, if I did the plan or not. It's not like you didn't know.
Come here, where's that watch that glowing? Let me see it.
Yeah, of course. I would just automatically up. That's what I appreciated about coaching is
Mhm.
that it helped me to stay more accountable. But I know I got off
Mhm.
on a tangent, but
No, I'm glad you
um,
described that because that's why instead of getting a training plan or a
or
bunch of
chat
coaches,
GPT or some other bullshit.
yeah,
Didn't help.
basically an AI plan, which yeah, their place that when you want the human element, you just described all the reasons why you want that coach. It's like I can adjust on the fly, still probably better than AI can do.
Sure.
But there's the human element. Like when I was coaching you, I gave a shit about you as a human
Yeah.
being.
Yeah.
And sure, and every one of my athletes, I don't care what you want to do.
Yeah.
It has to be somewhat realistic, but it doesn't have to be that realistic, just somewhat. But as long as you're healthy and happy, that's all that's really required from my end. I don't know. Whatever else is, it's your journey. And you've asked me to come along and guide you along some of it, give you your training plan, whatever the case may be.
But
But it has to always be seen in that bigger light because everyone's why is so much different.
we all do
Motivation
different
of
things,
it. Exactly.
It's
And
kind of
that's
what we
why.
talked about earlier. Think about it.
Mhm.
Like we're not elite athletes. We don't do this for a living. So we do this
Mhm.
to stay healthy, to maybe
Yeah.
compete because we like to
Mhm.
compete or whatever. I think that at the end of the day, the reason I keep doing it is because I want to be healthy as long as possible. Right. And running
Mhm.
allows me to do that. I always say, if you want to be a cyclist or you want to lift weights or, do a little bit of cardio,
Yes.
running isn't the thing you should have to go do, but it
Exactly.
is for me, like, I love it because of the community, because of the way it makes me feel and look, and a lot of other things.
Mhm.
And it helps me with work, my real life. Like, if I'm not running, I get tired and I say depressed, but, down and out sometimes. But if I'm
Oh, yeah,
constantly
yeah.
running and doing things, you know,
Mhm.
that motivates me and pushes me through my job and just
Mhm.
life. And it's
Yeah.
taken me to a lot of different places. Anyways, I said a lot of stuff.
No,
What do you
no,
think?
I love that. Because that hit the nail on the head really for multiple reasons. I don't have time. Maybe occasionally, yeah, you have a day where it's just okay. The kids, the job, and everything's gone wrong. The wife's sick or the husband's sick or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. So yeah, periodically have times where you can't, but it's not a bad thing to invest in yourself a bit. If you can't love
1,000%.
yourself and exercise, movement, whatever activity you want it to be, it's a privilege to be able to move. The way I say it, it's quadriplegic sure would love to complain about running. Like there is a perspective there to a degree. But something that's cool about you is you're quick when you want to be. Like when you
Yeah.
knuckle down and you do the training plan,
Yeah.
a 132 in Houston's a very formidable performance. And you could get up and go. Like some of those shorter intervals, you'd crank, sometimes even sub 6 pace for some of that stuff. Yeah. And then, yeah, you backed off for a little bit of it, but you've amassed a number of years of running. You have a
Yeah.
lot of experience yourself, but you are also that other half of the equation of what other people want. You run a robust Facebook group. You
Yeah.
answer a ton of questions. You have a wonderful website of resources for coaching, for group runs. So not only do do the running for yourself,
Yeah.
but there are hundreds and hundreds of eyes on you in a most positive way. And you bring people together to this basically marketplace of
Yeah.
whatever you want to do.
Who
Hey, I
wants
want to
to?
run walk. I want coaches, because there's a ton of good coaches out there just in the DFW area alone that are all, as I think there's been a post where someone says, hey, I'm looking for a coach. And then all these recommended names come through. And
Yeah.
we, of course, y'all comment on it. But I was like, try to keep it in the big picture of, hey, welcome. We're all here to help you.
That's right.
At the end of the day, like there's good people, and you're in a lot of the center of that,
Yeah. Like,
facilitating that.
and I appreciate that. And the way I think about that today is that when you think of that DFW running group, the Facebook group, that's how questions about running. And sometimes you get the same questions over and over. Then I started capturing the answers to those questions and pushing them out to the website so that one, people are searching for it on Google and stuff like that. And then it gives a resource to that DFW running group so that they can have access to that. And then the other piece of that is I started this podcast. So I've done podcasting for 5 years. And so
Hmm.
not running podcasts, but like a data podcast. I build online communities from ground up for work. And so I would talk to other community managers that did the same thing I did for a long time. And I thought, I have this running group that we talk to coaches, or people want coaches. People want to know where to run, who to run with, all these things
Mhm.
over and over. And I thought, I've got this great website, this great community, but wow, how cool would it be if I start talking to these people, not just runners in the community, but coaches in the community, maybe dietitians or whatever, and bring them to life. And I think podcasts we'll do video, audio, people can listen to it in any way, but it provides additional content, but it also brings in,
Mhm.
I don't know, what you talked about was more of that human element, this community, right? It's not just a bunch of questions and answers and somebody just typing away on the keyboard or whatever. So, I don't know. That's
Exactly.
another way I think about it.
No, exactly. It boils down to it's like commonality and someone caring about somebody else.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we can all look back and think when we first started running, what questions did we have? Like I was telling somebody the other day,
Mhm.
I would go out and just run and thinking that every run has to be just as fast as the other run or faster. Can
Oh,
I
gosh.
PR? I just ran 6 miles. Oh my God, I'm excited. I did that in 55 minutes. Can I get it under 55 tomorrow?
Yeah.
That's that. No, that's not how you're supposed to do it. But I didn't know, you know?
Exactly. But that's so funny you say that because it's like almost everyone's start to running. And then let's just say they have 10 or 15 years layoff and they remember,
Yeah,
because that's like pretty predominant in high school or younger
that's
ages
right.
too. And then you can get away with it because my God, like balls. Exactly. Like bounce back. But like someone who hasn't run forever, somebody that's needing to quote unquote get back in shape. And I said, do not be ashamed of a run walk program. He's like, okay,
Exactly.
so we go out and run for 20 minutes. And I'm like, that's not going to go well. What do you mean? It's not going to go well. You're going to
No.
stop 5 minutes into that and your shins are going to be throbbing
Yeah.
because you haven't run since you were 15 and you're 35.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Or 40, whatever.
Exactly. Exactly. And I said, just give it a couple weeks. Be patient. I swear this will make it doable for you. Run 1 minute, walk 1 minute,
Yeah.
run, walk, then build that out. Then do your 20 minutes that way. And I know it's
Yeah.
not splashy, but it gets you
I,
there.
I love that. As a matter of fact, when I first started running again at 37, it's when I was overweight and stuff. I was just like, you know what? I want to go run a mile every day the next 5 days. And I'm going to allow myself to walk, run, whatever I want to do the first 4 days. And then I want to jog the whole mile on Friday. But what it did was gives me then the next week I was like, maybe I'll do that again, or maybe I'll move it up to a mile and a half or whatever. And so I think progression is the key, obviously, to
Mhm.
distance running or to running in general. And let's be honest, like running for your first 30 or 40, 60 days is going to be a beating. It's just hard. But then over time, when you do it, you start feeling good. Like you start looking at yourself, you start feeling confident about how you look and how you feel. And, all these things that I think for me that has brought, for the longest time, it was
Mhm.
more about weight that I just didn't want to be overweight. But
Mhm.
now it's become a lifestyle. I just
Yeah.
do it
You
because,
love to run.
yeah, I love it. I don't love the day to day grind. Honestly, I really don't love that, but I love it afterwards.
Yeah, exactly, afterwards.
So
We don't talk about that.
human, I think we all
Of
are.
course. Oh, yeah.
Some
Oh,
days
yeah.
are like,
Some
come
days
on,
it's a
man,
struggle.
we gotta go run 6 miles. That sucks. Or let's see if I can get 3 and go from there or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly. Just get out the door, warm up, and see where you're at.
That's
Yes,
right.
I've seen that before with the workout when someone's maybe a little bit tired. Exhaustion, no, we're gonna cut just that's a day off. There's a
Yeah.
difference between tired and
Yeah.
exhaustion, 100%. But if you're tired, it's like just go through the warm up and do the first rep, see where you're at.
Yeah.
I mean, usually it's fine from there. It's just that get out the door. And that usually takes care of
100%.
it. People get on with it. But it's funny where you're like, oh God, it's gonna take so long to get back in shape. Or then, maybe you're 30, 60, 90 days down the road, and then you're like, crap, I'm not that fast. But then another thing coach can do is like remind you of the big picture because maybe you're looking right here and only here, but then the coach has the whole thing because
100%.
they're outside perspective. But, someone I think it was someone was asking once again about, well, I can't always, I'm always stuck running and walking. And so we've just started. And I said, I have a lady I coach who could run 1 minute at 10:30 pace, or you
Yeah.
should walk. And that's the start point. It's like, "Okay, we know what it is."
Sounds good.
Mm. It's not that long when you think about it, but 6 months later, she did a 30-minute tempo at her 1 minute walk pace.
That's awesome.
That's a significant
Huge.
change in ability. And it's don't write that off. That is like how much over you could say that is an improvement. What patients will give you.
People think about times as, oh, I'm not that fast. It's not really, to me, it's not really about how fast you are. It's just
Mhm.
about just being consistent at it and you'll get faster. Now,
Mhm.
there's always somebody faster than you, always. So the reality is like, I think when I first started running, and don't take this personal, but I thought, I should be faster than all women, period. Absolutely wrong. That's not the reality. There's men and women or whatever way faster than me. And I think that sometimes we put too much focus on the speed and we shouldn't do that necessarily. I'm not saying you shouldn't try to get better if you don't want to, if you want to go from a 10:30 to 8 or whatever, should progression to do it. I think that's to compare yourself to somebody else is just, I don't think is the right thing to think about.
You need to train for your purposes and needs. There's other times being competitive in a race. That's healthy to have a little bit of competition or whatever, but then
Yeah, of
it
course.
is what it is. It's just a moment in a time. Guy work early. But yeah, ultimately you have to be solid in why you're doing it. And paces be
Sure.
damned compared to somebody else.
Rachel, it's been good. We actually went past an hour. That's
Oh, okay.
pretty crazy, huh?
Pretty crazy. Dang. Hopefully someone listens and goes, did she say any coherent thoughts?
You said a lot of coherent thoughts, and I think that runners are going to learn a ton from you and already have. And I think you're an inspiration to the running community. And I appreciate what you're doing and I look forward to seeing what continues on.
A heartfelt thank you very much for that.
Yeah, of course. Thank you everyone for tuning in to another DFW running talk. Please rate and review us. All the ratings and reviews are really good. Once I send this over to Rachel, I'm going to make her do it or at least push her to do it as well. So thank you everyone for coming. And Rachel, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris.
Take care.
Bye.